questions to the end, because I think the slide pack we're going to step through in less than 30 minutes, so there'll be plenty of time for question and answers afterwards. So we'll start with an intro and introduction of people. Quick overview, a few pieces about the timelines, both the industry or MPPA timeline, which gives you a bit of context why Cascal have the timeline we have, project governance and next steps. Moving on to the intro, I'm Matt, so I'm the project manager. Pallavi Kapoor is the senior payments manager, and as I mentioned before, Sanket is the product owner. Charlene Watford is the product manager. We got Rishi, who's architecture, and we also have Sri, who's assistant product manager. A quick overview. As you would know, people at Virgin, just having gone through the NPP piece, i.e. the credit payments or push payments. You have just launched with that, Mark, and I'm assuming that's all going well, Mark?
Yep, so far so good. No issues at the moment, as far as I'm aware.
How many friends and family do you have onboarded?
I think we're going up to 60 or 70.
We're going more. We had sort of 27, 28 as at Friday, and then an invitation's gone out to an additional 60, or just short of 60, 57 today.
Oh, great. So you should be getting a bit of volume this week.
Yeah.
That's great. Okay. Yeah, please go ahead.
No, it's okay. You go.
Right. So in terms of the project and the MPS capability, that will support the debit part of transactions, and the closest equivalent that I can think of is really the direct entry, which is partly a manual system where a client will fill in a form, and then it's a lot of batch processing, etc., to make it all happen. We will provide, together with MPPA, the MPS capability through initiation messages, where a customer authorized the payment arrangement. We call this a mandate, and these will be stored in a central database at MPPA/Swift. There will be a large number of business rules associated with this. In comparison to the credit portion, I think the debit portion is far more complex in capabilities and the number of business rules. There will also be a large number of new APIs created in order to support this. There's a large number of use cases that MPS will enable, and I've just listed a few on this slide. The most common is schedule and recurring payments, or the equivalent of the DE if you wish. Cascal Payer Services overview. Cascal will orchestrate mandate-related notifications and messages between Cascal, payer clients, and MMS, or the mandate management system. Cascal will also provide easy plug-in to clients' digital channels. We are adding MPS services on top of existing MPP payment systems or services. And as part of the MPS solution, we offer an end-to-end mandate operations that includes amendment, status change, and porting, but not limited to those. Of course, there are a large number of other services. The Cascal MPP Hub has been updated to support the mandate data and mandate searches, disputes, and payment exceptions. back office support will continue, of course, to be provided to clients, and there will be additional reports for reconciliation of mandates. And obviously, we continue to collaborate with our clients in order to make sure that your MPS implementation is successful. In terms of very high-level timeframes, these are the MPPA mandated dates at a very high level. And as you can see, there are two portions in the middle of the slide of testings. One is named solar test and testing, and the other body testing. Both of those activities are CASCOL, no impact on clients of those activities. And I'll show you later where client testing fits in. Those activities, construction and test, will continue into October 21. CASCOL planned to deploy on 31st of October. And in the 1 month period leading up to 3rd of December is when client onboarding will occur. So there'll be quite a lot of activity throughout November 21. The timeline that's far more interesting to you is the client delivery timeframes. The API Swagers for the MPS system is already on the developer hub. So if you're keen, you can certainly go and peruse and have a look. They are in a pretty mature state. We actually started putting these Swagers or technical documentation up on the developer hub in November, at which stage we turned them as light. And as you move towards the right of this arrow, the Swagers are maturing, and they are in a pretty mature state as we speak. The only impact or change that I foresee is if there's a change at MPPA level. The test APIs will be available from end of February. Again, the same concept, where at the left-hand side of the arrow, is the light version, and it's maturing as we move towards the right part of the arrow. Client integration testing is scheduled to commence around 1st of July through to end of August. And the technical or performance testing throughout September. And as I mentioned before, we deploy CASCOL changes end of October 2021, and then we have 1 month of onboarding activity with launch in early December. In terms of documentation, product description will be provided prior to Christmas. CX guidelines have been shared through a developer webinar. I think that Virgin Money may not have been at that particular webinar, but nevertheless, the same guidelines are in the process of being uploaded to the developer hub, so they'll be available through that portion. The business consideration document will be provided in February together with the APIs. Technical documents, we've talked about the Swagers, so I won't cover that again. We will publish a developer guide for the MPS solution.
You said it was
yes,
February?
I beg your pardon?
You said something was coming in February?
That is the business consideration document.
Business considerations document, okay. Thanks.
You're welcome. The developer guide is also scheduled to be delivered in February together with the APIs. However, I've taken an action from other client meetings, understanding this is quite critical for various organizations to provide context in addition to the technical API swaggers. Hence, I'm looking at whether we can bring forward the developer guide to somewhere around January timeframe. And again, using the similar concept of light version / draft version. If we can do this, give it to you a month early, that probably provide your technical teams a lot of benefits in terms of context. Where can I see these documents? I think that's old hat for Virgin. Technical documentation is on the developer hub, and other documentation were documents through the Cascal portal. And I think we covered the last portion about when and am I getting them. So I'm going to move on to governance. There will be an implementation coordinator assigned to you and your organization who will bring you on the journey, MPS journey. The coordinator will be the single point of contact throughout the MPS project. Of course, you can always contact me if there are any needs. There's also an account manager that can be contacted, and of course, the email address at the bottom of this slide you can also use if you need to get in contact with anyone about an issue or queries, etc. The implementation manager will also be responsible for communication to clients via webinars on a quarterly basis, and I think the next one is scheduled for March 2021. And they will also schedule workshops with service providers, including with the architects, so we can provide information, assistance in order to make the MPS journey as simple as possible. The implementation coordinators will schedule fortnightly project meetings in order to give you updates, listen to issues, risks, etc. Cascal project monitoring is done through a number of different mechanisms. One is the internal MPS steering committee that meets on a monthly basis, and all of the senior leadership team at Cascal is part of that steering committee, and other key senior Cascal staff. Mark,
Matt,
I think.
Just a quick one. Just in terms of governance, we obviously in this last project we had a weekly sort of catch up. What sort of ongoing meetings, etc., will we be having with this project, or do you envisage the same sort of ongoing engagement?
No, that's what I mentioned on the previous slide about the client implementation coordinators. They will schedule fortnightly meetings.
Okay.
And that will be to discuss similar things as we did in our weekly meeting.
Sure.
Issues, progress, and things that need attention. I probably want to make it a tad more formal, like you know how in the beginning of the MPP project or onboarding, we had status reports. I think they work really well in these kind of scenarios, and you keep track quite well of issues and things. So we'll look at how we provide that. I will work with the implementation coordinators on that topic.
So who are the coordinators? Or we're not sure yet?
We're not sure yet, so I will advise that as soon as they're on board.
Okay, thanks.
Cascal also provides status reporting to MPPA on a monthly basis, and we also do quite a comprehensive status report on a quarterly basis in terms of progress. MPPA uses that to gauge how the industry is progressing overall. And we've also have one senior person from Cascol attending the MPPA steering committee. In terms of risks, I thought it was pertinent to highlight the industry delay risk, because in a big program like this, where we've got a lot of participants across the entire industry, that is always a risk that there is a delay because some participant can't meet the mandated milestone dates, and an NPPA may then choose to move the milestone dates. I don't have any information at this point in time that there is any intention to move down that path, but I think it is important to highlight that there is a risk of that nature. And you always have that in a large program, as I said, with lots of participants. I think we are talking about between 15 to 20 large participants. So that is quite a lot of industry participation. This slide is just for your information that there have been a number of workshops with existing MPP clients. And there also was a webinar back in October that I think was provided to you at a later stage. The next workshop is scheduled for March 2021, as I mentioned. And I've also listed a number of things that we would like from you. In terms of release window, when I discussed onboarding and launch towards the end of next year, would really appreciate if you could advise how that fits in with your timeframes. One of the reasons, I know that it's quite far out, but there is a lot of activity happening in November 2021, hence a need for early planning, making sure that we can organize all the clients and participants within that particular month in order to achieve the go live 3rd of December. Also like to understand where you are at in the project life cycle. For example, are you at a funding stage? It may be seed funding. You have already progressed maybe down to design using the Swagger documentation that is available. So I will circle back to that one a bit later. Also love to hear from you in terms of dependencies, risks and issues that you see from your point of view. The more comprehensive view I can have of the landscape, I think the better. Also, there was a variation letter provided to you. If you could return that by 29th of January, that'd be fantastic if you haven't already. And of course, be available for future workshops and meetings. We will, after this workshop, provide you a feedback form on which I would like to receive this information. And we do that by the end of this week. And if you could feed that back by mid-January, that would be much appreciated. So that basically concludes the slide pack, and we are at questions and answers. And I am going to hone in on the client MPS readiness portion a little bit more. Could you discuss or let me know where you are at in the MPS schedule or project phase? I understand you've just gone live with MPP, so you've probably been totally consumed by that, but nevertheless, it would be great to hear from you where you're at with the MPS readiness or what your plans are.
I think you pretty much summed up where we currently are at the moment. We're solely focused on launch currently, at least that's my understanding. And although we've had a couple of workshops on on MPS. We haven't essentially sat down and scoped anything out, unless I'm incorrect in that side there, Steve or Chris. Sorry.
Yeah, correct. So we've got obviously quite a bit happening with the first Staff and Friends and Family release going live last week, and we've also got a few other MPP related changes due kind of first half of next year, which we're actively looking into those ones at the moment, and we're hoping to kind of jump straight into those ones early next year, get those changes completed before moving on to this one.
Yeah, sorry.
I was just going to say that whilst we've gone technically live on the 4th, we're very much closed loop staff only and some selected partners. We are ramping up to a full market launch on Feb 16. So as sort of Steve alluded to, the teams are busy working towards that Feb 16 date, as well as Steve also mentioned, there's a couple of commitments we've made to the NPPA around some things that we could not deliver for the initial launch date to be delivered in the first half of calendar year. So my guess would be, and Steve, you jump in here, is that the team has not had an opportunity to have a detailed look at this and would not be in a position to do so most probably until at least sort of February of next year before they can take a detailed look at this and what's required.
Yeah, correct. And Mark's just shared the kind of the design, the UX guideline document as well. So there's little bits that little areas of it. So we might be able to start looking into the the front end design and what needs to change there. But from the development perspective, I think kind of February next year would be the earliest opportunity we'll have to start looking into this one.
Right. Yeah, thank you for that. The key date to keep in mind, or the period, I suppose, is the July to August timeframe where we do need to complete the client integration testing. So it may very well be that you are requesting the later portion of that window in order to organize and complete your activities. So yeah, please just keep us in the loop of how you're progressing. I'm sure you will do that, Mark, through our fortnightly meetings.
Yeah, for sure. When are those going to start, Matt?
So we're probably looking at after January sometime, so February, because as I mentioned on one of the slides, we are releasing the test APIs end of February, but I'd like to start having those conversations in February, because that also may give me an insight to where you're at, how you're progressing, etc.
Yeah, for sure. And so the other thing I was going to ask, we had a couple of questions off the back of the first time we had a meeting with yourself and Sanket that we sent through via email, just around the costs of potentially what it would mean for us if we were to do this outside of this current phase. So cost in terms of non-compliance, and then also potential assistance with delivery outside of this project that you've put together for your clients. We just obviously need, there's a lot going on, and Steve J is every time we raise something for payments, he really enjoys it. But it's just, there's a lot going on, and there's a lot of payments things scheduled for next year. And if this does come into some sort of risk, it'll be really critical for us to understand what the sort of costs of not delivering to these timeframes would be.
Right. Yeah, no, I will take that action in terms of delivery outside of this program. And I'm
Yep.
sure
And that's not saying that it's going to happen, but it's just good for us to make the decision, essentially.
Yes, and I suppose what I will provide is indicative, so it's kind of our things you can't hold me to, because I won't go down to that level. It's more indicative, and I'm sure that Sanket has already started investigating the potential impact from an MPPA point of view, if there are any fines or whatever they call them.
Yep.
Okay, Pallavi, do you have anything in addition you wish to cover? Any questions? I'll take the silence as no. Are there any other questions that you may wish to ask before we close the meeting?
It's just that final question, the variation letter, that's the one we have to, essentially we need to make the decision, sign the variation letter, return it to you by the end of January.
Correct.
Okay.
Guys, the variation letter will sit with me. We've got a broader commercial discussion happening with Cuscal at the moment, of which this will be part of. So I will have a discussion with Nathan and John and most probably Sanket on the best way to progress that.
Okay, great.
Very good. All right, if there are no other questions, I thank you so much for your time, and Merry Christmas to you all.
Thanks, Matt. You too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers. Bye.